So, friends, did Trump-appointed Judge Aileen Cannon just abuse her judicial discretion a third time? Yet again, doing something to the extreme benefit of Donald Trump that the law does not allow? Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, here we go again. Trump-appointed Judge Aileen Cannon, who is no longer presiding over the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case because she dismissed the case. And the case is now on appeal. So only the appeals court has jurisdiction. Only the appeals court has the authority to act on the case. Judge Cannon no longer has jurisdiction. She no longer has the authority to act on the case, yet act she just did. Let's start with the new reporting. This from the New York Times. Headline: Judge Cannon blocks release of special counsel's final report on Trump. Can I put just a little bit of meat on the bones of that headline? Trump-appointed Judge Aileen Cannon, who was twice reversed previously by the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals for abusing her judicial discretion and doing things that the law did not allow to the extreme benefit of the president who appointed her, Donald Trump, Judge Cannon blocks release of special counsel Jack Smith's final report on the crimes Donald Trump committed against the American people. Judge Aileen Cannon, a Trump appointee who had dismissed the documents case in its entirety, temporarily barred the Justice Department from releasing Jack Smith's account of his investigation. And that article begins: the federal judge who handled President-elect Donald Trump's prosecution on charges of mishandling classified documents temporarily barred the Justice Department on Tuesday from releasing a final report about the case by the special counsel Jack Smith. In a brief ruling, Judge Aileen Cannon, a Trump appointee who dismissed the documents case in its entirety this summer, enjoined, in other words, stopped or prevented, Smith from sharing his report outside the Justice Department until a federal appeals court in Atlanta, which is now considering a challenge to her dismissal, makes a decision about how to handle the report. Smith, who also investigated Trump's attempt to overturn his loss in the 2020 election, has said in court filings that his final report will have 2 volumes, one for each of the indictments he brought against the president-elect. Judge Cannon's order barring the release of the report did not appear to distinguish between the documents case, which she oversaw, and the election interference case, which Judge Tanya Chutkan heard in Washington. Judge Cannon has a history of issuing unusual rulings in Mr. Trump's favor. Early in the investigation that led to the documents indictment, she intervened in the case to impede the inquiry. Put another way, to interfere with the department investigation into Donald Trump's crimes, only to be overruled by a conservative panel that sits over her, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit in Atlanta. Okay, friends, 3 takeaways from this development. First, there's a bedrock principle in the practice of criminal law. When a case is appealed, the trial court judge loses jurisdiction, loses the authority to do anything in the case. Only the appeals court has jurisdiction at that point. Recall Donald Trump's other criminal federal prosecution in Washington, D.C. for trying to overturn the 2020 election results. That was the one presided over by Judge Tanya Chutkan. And Judge Chutkan litigated the presidential immunity issue. She ruled, correctly in my opinion, and in the opinion of the D.C. Federal Circuit Court of Appeals, that presidents are not immune from prosecution for crimes they commit in violation of our nation's laws against the American people. And Donald Trump's lawyers appealed Judge Chutkan's ruling. And remember what happened? The case came to a grinding halt, a dead stop in the trial court. Why? Because Judge Chutkan no longer had jurisdiction, no longer had authority to do anything in the case, in the trial court. But apparently, neither the law nor the rules of procedure mean anything to Judge Cannon. And one of the first things I did when I saw this news break was I looked at Judge Cannon's very thin, basically two-page order directing Merrick Garland not to release Jack Smith's report about Donald Trump's crimes. And I looked for some authority, some case law, some precedent, giving her jurisdiction, giving her the authority to take this action in a case over which she no longer presides, a case in which she no longer has jurisdiction. And I read it a couple of times. This is a precedent-free ruling. No case law, no legal support for her acting in this way, acting in this case, which is now in the exclusive purview of the appeals court. So I expect when we see Jack Smith file his reply, we'll be hearing a little something about that. Takeaway number 2, this may end up being the third time Judge Aileen Cannon abuses her judicial discretion to the extreme benefit of Donald Trump. She's already been reversed twice previously for abusing her judicial discretion in Trump's favor, doing things that the law did not allow. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals reversed her twice previously. This may end up being her third abuse of judicial discretion, exercising jurisdiction in a case over which she no longer presides. And then even after that, she could end up being reversed yet again on appeal. Because recall that she dismissed the classified documents obstruction of justice espionage case against Donald Trump and his two co-defendants, Walt Nauta and Carlos de Oliveira. Now, the case against Nauta and de Oliveira is up on appeal to see if she was wrong in deciding not that there wasn't enough evidence to prosecute these crimes, but in deciding that, gosh, Jack Smith, special counsel, just wasn't lawfully appointed. She made that decision not only absent lawful authority, but contrary to precedent. Every other judge who has ever had to litigate and resolve the issue of the legality of the appointment of special counsel or an independent prosecutor, the legality has always been upheld, including a Supreme Court case from back in the 1970s during the Watergate era. None of that mattered to Judge Cannon. She says, I'm just dismissing this case against Donald Trump and his two co-defendants. So I suspect when the 11th Circuit gets around to deciding that issue, the propriety of her dismissal of the case, they will very likely reverse her again, perhaps finding she abused her judicial discretion, or perhaps finding she was just plain wrong, even if it wasn't, strictly speaking, an abuse of her judicial discretion. So, Judge Cannon is nothing if not consistently wrong in Donald Trump's favor. Third and final takeaway, this issue, Judge Cannon telling the executive branch, the Department of Justice, do not release a special counsel report that your internal rules, procedures, and regulations in the executive branch of the federal government, a separate but equal branch of government, says can be released in the discretion of the Attorney General. I'm ordering you not to release it. That poses a separation of powers question. Does a judge even have the lawful authority to tell another co-equal branch of government to do or not do something that, is exclusively within the purview of the executive branch, following DOJ policies and regulations, releasing a special counsel report if the Attorney General decides it should be released? That's probably another legal issue we'll be hearing about in the coming days. But friends, one thing is pretty clear. Trump-appointed Judge Aileen Cannon continues to distinguish herself as somebody who has no business being on the federal bench. She seems to ignore or violate the rule of law, the rules of procedure, and she does it consistently, invariably, to the extreme benefit of Donald Trump, the very president who appointed her to her cushy lifetime position. She has no business continuing to be a federal judge with life tenure. And let's hope all of these abuses of discretion come home to roost and she's held accountable for what she's been doing. Because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.